off the top, starting with the first storyline, the first question I have for the Big Ten Conference. Who will Ohio State and Ryan Day win their first national title together? So will Ohio State and Ryan Day win their first national title together this year? I want to say yes, and that's predicated on a couple of things, right? One is Ryan Day is Ryan Day. Since he joined up at Ohio State as offensive coordinator and eventually head coach, all they've done is won everything except a national championship. Like, quite literally. Making a national championship game to get ran by Bama. Happens to the best of us. That was also a ridiculously awesome Alabama team. But what gets lost is that Ohio State wasn't even playing football until October, November 2020, right? And then you lose the head coach for a game of COVID, right? And then you got to come back, win the Big Ten championship, and you make your way in the college football playoff. You beat your nemesis in Clemson, and you get to the national title game against Alabama. This year, you got C.J. Stroud, Travion Henderson, Jackson Smith, and Jigba for the best trio in the sport. I sincerely believe that. Like, you saw, again, Trey Henderson is a cheat code. Like, he's all Madden, and you're on pro. Like, that's how that works. He's been that dude since high school. I could wax poetic about Trey Henderson and be here all day, but you understand, right? That is the bell cow back in the backfield. And yes, Ryan Day still wants to run the football. But when he doesn't run the football, that is a C.J. Stroud back there dropping dimes. Jackson Smith and Jigba is streaking all over the field, all up and down the field, across your face. Just ask the Utah Utes how that goes. A lot of folks kind of were looking at Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson kind of quizzical when they were asked straight up, who is the best receiver of the three of you? CJ, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, or Jackson Smith and Jigba? And those dudes said, nah, man, JSN, he that dude. And everybody's like, wait a second. You mean the dude that's number 3 on the depth chart? Help us understand. And they knew what we would see in the Rose Bowl. That man is him, okay? I'm here for that. And I get C.J. Stroud, who's much more comfortable as a starting quarterback and seated in that way. Talking about last year, for instance, I brought up the Minnesota game to him and to Ryan Day. One of the things that Day's been really good about bringing up is that dude hadn't played football in like 2 years. He hadn't been hit. Like, the pace of the game was just different. And the way that he was able to grow into that role and be one of the better quarterbacks, one of the better players in college football and be a Heisman finalist only bodes well for the future. Now, on that front, it's about how good the defense is going to be, because we know that Ohio State's offense is going to put up 50. It's about, can you stop other people from putting up 50 on you, okay? Made the change. They went to go Jim Knowles from the other OSU down in Stillwater. He is coordinating the defense now, bringing that 4-2-5 with him, along with Tanner McAllister, who's going to play a little safety, kind of like a grad assistant on the field coming from Oklahoma State. He understands what the system calls for. I also think the edges, the ends, are going to be outstanding this year, because Colin Oliver broke out all last year, double-digit sacks. And this year you got JTT and you got Jack Sawyer. For the uninitiated, that is JT Tuimoloau on the ends. And that's before we start talking about guys like Zach Harrison, Taraji Mitchell behind them, and the way that that defense could be humming right along. They want to be a top 5 defense in the country. They're top 5 defense in the country. They're playing a national championship game. It's just that simple. However, is Notre Dame going to be this year's Oregon? Yeah, I said it. All right. So I'm that dude. Like, let's get this out the way. Buckeye fans, come at me. I understand, but I'm going to bring it up. You got beat by Oregon at home. You got beat by Oregon at home, and then a child put a rubber duck on your O block to stunt on you. One of my favorite features of all last year. Shout out to Charlotte Wilder for getting that and throwing it down. But I did not give you much credit after that, because you got beat by Oregon at home. Okay? Then Oregon gets exposed by Stanford and gets doubled up in 13 days by Utah. It's just not a good look for you. And if we're talking about quality wins, quality losses, we can have these different ways. We're going to go back into to the top 25 here coming out for the AP. Well, it's already out now that you're seeing this. But I'm going to do the rankings the way that you're used to doing the rankings, so you ain't got to worry about that. But I am saying, if Notre Dame shows up to the shoe in week 1 and hands Ohio State an L, I'm not going to blame y'all for wanting to pull your hair out once again and feeling as if the world is up against you because you got beat by Marcus Freeman, an Ohio State grad, an Ohio State alumnus, in really what is his first huge away game for me, like, period. And I'm sure that man is so tired of talking about this game, but you know what? That's what it means when you play Ohio State and you're the head coach of Notre Dame. I'm excited about that game. I think that game could be outstanding and a lot of fun. Those are the things I'm looking for from Ohio State to see if they can win their first national championship with Ryan Day as head coach in their first one since 2014. Second question I have in the Big Ten this year. Is the state of Michigan for real? Okay, let me unpack what I mean here. Okay, last year, the state of Michigan, that is Michigan and Michigan State, went 23-4 combined with a college football playoff appearance. That means that both of the schools in the state of Michigan who play Big Ten football have each made the college football playoff. That in and of itself is nothing to sneeze at, right? State of Florida can't say that. State of Texas can't say that. Texas still trying to get one of y'all in the college football playoff, and I'm talking about Baylor, not A&M in Texas. You understand what I mean here, right? We keep going down the line. You had 2 New Year's Six appearances, Orange Bowl for Michigan where they got ran by Georgia, but it is generational Georgia, and you understand what that means. And then Michigan State just going and getting it in, right, in their New Year's Six appearance. And then you got 2 NFL first-round picks and 9 total draft picks from last year, right? Aiden Hutchinson just stormed up the draft board to be that dude at Michigan on the strength of what they were able to do, notably beating Ohio State for the first time in 11 years, getting Jim Harbaugh's first win against Ohio State as head coach of Michigan. Not something to sneeze at, which leads me to Michigan State also beat Michigan, something we didn't see coming. That was a proud day for the folks in East Lansing. For those of y'all that are uninitiated, Michigan, they do the double Windsor because I wear the double Windsor, so I know it when I see it, and they cinch it all the way up. Michigan State about this gutter, okay? They about getting it how they live, okay? That is Magic Johnson space. That's what East Lansing is. So them getting a W against them dudes from Ann Arbor is not something to sneeze at. Michigan beat Ohio State, so you got Michigan beat. You got Michigan get beat by Michigan State, but Michigan beat Ohio State. You know, if we're doing the transitive math there, Michigan State's a better football than Ohio State, except they played and Ohio State ran them. You understand what I mean here. You can talk yourself into it if you're from the state of Michigan. Then you had both of these teams beating Penn State, which I got to say says more about Penn State than it does the state of Michigan. And I wonder how many of y'all have been paying attention to Penn State over the last couple of years here, because it ain't what you really thought it was going to be. There's one stat in particular that bothers me about Penn State. They have gone 16 consecutive games without a single 100-yard rusher. Now, if you know something about Nittany Lions football, you know they want to run the football. Like that's kind of what they pride themselves on doing. And yet, they don't have one dude the last couple of years who is their bell cow back. I'm betting a bunch on a dude I'm going to tell you a little bit later on when it comes to putting that back together. But Penn State, game recognized game, and y'all been looking kind of unfamiliar, okay? I'm asking. Show me what's really good in Happy Valley. Y'all get that week 1, you get the Thursday night game against Purdue. Let's see what you got. Show me what's really good. You know what I mean? You know? Shout out to James Franklin, who on the show last year and at Big Ten Media Days was saying our offensive line's going to be good. We're going to run the football. He made it pointedly so it told me I'm not saying that this year. I'm going to let you say that, and it'll be gospel. And I'm like, you know that's not how that's going to work. But he understands changing up his defense coordinator, lost Brent Pride at Virginia Tech, brought in Manny Diaz, who was let go at Miami. Mike Yurcich going into year 2 with Sean Clifford. And Sean Clifford was buoyant. Like, that dude was feeling kind of nice. Like, he's like, no. I have the same coordinator in the same system. I got Parker Washington over here. I got Mitchell Tinsley over here. I'm going to be throwing balls to my brother. It's going to be pretty fun at Happy Valley. And I remember what Sean Clifford was like in 2019. He gets back to that, we could be up to something, all right? So, is the state of Michigan for real? We'll find out for sure this year. I think Mel Tucker is that dude. I love the way that Mel Tucker develops. I love the way that Mel Tucker recruits. He's doing this thing with NIL, which is that I absolutely love. I absolutely love. He's not poo-pooing it. He's not saying this is the world we live in. He's not saying we got to adjust or adapt. He's saying, no, I will help you create the business that is you. So we are putting in place all the things around East Lansing that need to be there for you to develop you on the business side while you get this education. I'm going, yes, treat it like a pro ball club. As much as y'all don't want to hear that, that's what college football is, man. We talk about billions of dollars here. And the kids getting a little bit, and y'all catching feelings over this. You got to stop. You got to stop because you're going to get left behind. Now, if you're noticing, but Southern Methodist out here talking about we're going to pay $36,000 a year to football and basketball players for being on the team. You know what that's called? It's called a salary. We just can't call it that because of NCAA rules and laws that make y'all feel kind of squeezy and squeamish inside. But it is the way that things are going. And if you want to be competitive, the bag is no longer a bag. It's a check that you deposit into a bank. I'm really excited about this era of college football, as you can very well tell. Okay, next question I have for the Big Ten. Is this the last stand for Scott Frost? Okay, if we were to use the term embattled for Scott Frost, I don't think we're speaking out of school here. We're not speaking out of school here because Scott Frost was 3-9 last year. Never mind, it's probably the best 3-9 team of all time. It's a dubious honor. Kind of like Crash Davis hitting the most home runs in minor league. It's not a record you really want to have. It's not something you want on your resume. It just kind of makes people look at you and ask, well, questions that you don't want to answer. Like, how do you win? How do you lose so many one-possession ball games, dog? And yet go put 50 up on Northwestern. Make us understand here, okay? It's also, he's 10-25 in the Big Ten. And nobody's felt more out of place in a conference with realignment since Nebraska decided to join the Big Ten. I think it works for the bottom line. I even think it can work for recruiting, but there was a time when Nebraska's roster used to be filled with dudes from Texas. Why were they filled with dudes from Texas? Because their parents could see them play and go beat up on Texas teams, Oklahoma teams. You get what I'm saying here. I remember I did this show at Media Days last year, and I had this question where I said, hey, say something nice about your rival, right? And the Nebraska players were going, who? Who are we supposed to be talking about here? Are we supposed to be talking about Iowa? Is it Iowa? Is it Oklahoma? Because they were playing Oklahoma for the first time in years last year. They were confused, and I think that's a great story to tell to kind of contextualize just how precarious the situation is at Nebraska, to say nothing of they got a new athletic director who also has our man Scott Frost taking a reduction in pay, who also has a show cause, and really needs to have just a bowl eligible season this year. I don't think that's the moon for them, honestly. I think you win 6 games at Nebraska, people are going to be excited about it because they just don't like being mediocre and bad. And that's why it hurts me, right? And it hurts most of the folks that grew up with the Big 12 in the 90s and the early 2000s. I know Nebraska as a monster. I know Nebraska as, nah, man, you mean we got to play Nebraska again? Or the 90s Nebraskas where it wasn't even close. They were just stomping a mud hole in Oklahoma and walking them dry. I know Tommy Frazier. I met Tommy Frazier. I know what that 95 Nebraska team is. I also know that Eric Crouch was the non-throwingest quarterback that I ever could even think about winning a Heisman Trophy. That's who Nebraska is. I need them to get close to that. Can they get close to that? So to get to get close to that, Scott Frost overturned basically half the offensive staff. He's given up the play calling privileges to Mark Whipple, which I think is a bigger deal than a lot of people want to make it out to be, because I know Scott Frost as a play caller first. Remember, this is a man that really jumped into the national consciousness with what he was doing at Oregon. Okay? And then he goes down to Central Florida where they've been booty and said, no, we going to turn it tutti frutti. We going to go get this championship. Beat Auburn in the Peach Bowl, went undefeated, and y'all still want to deny Central Florida its national championship. I'm not going to let you because I'm still here. And they legitimately they ran the table. They beat everybody they have to beat. And then we just didn't want to give them Bama. I think you give them Bama, they got the one loss. But they didn't get Bama because the sport just won't evolve. We need to expand the playoff. We need to get to 16 teams. We need to have automatic bids for conference championships so that conference championships absolutely matter. But that's another discussion that we will continue to have throughout the rest of the season. Then the personnel, I think, got a lot better. You add Casey Thompson out of Texas. You add Chuba Purdy out of Florida State. It's a quarterback competition. And I say it's a quarterback competition, podcast listeners. I'm making gross air quotes because it ought to be Casey Thompson's job. Like, it's his to lose, I think is the way to put this. Because this is a man who's going into his last year of eligibility, and he can transfer up to Nebraska to sit no bench. Like, that's just not what it is. Now, I know y'all want to be this competitive nature of, like, may the best man win. What I'm telling you is if Casey plays to his ability, that's him. Okay? I remember Casey playing down at Southmore and then over at Newcastle. That dude can absolutely spin it if he's given an opportunity to do so. And then behind him, he's adding the best JUCO player in the country last year, Anthony Grant, who went for something like 1,800 yards down in New Mexico Military Institute. Outstanding tailback. I think they're going to have opportunities to be great. LSU wide receiver transfer Trey Palmer's there. Mickey Joseph comes back home after putting together what is legitimately one of the greatest wide receiving groups of all time at LSU with Justin Jefferson, Terrace Marshall, and of course our man. All right, I got a running joke about Jamar Chase. And the joke is Jamar Chase going up at media days before Oklahoma plays in the doggone Peach Bowl. And, you know, the question is, how are you going to deal with this press man coverage from a guy like Trey Brown? Trey Brown was playing corner at Oklahoma. He says, I want him to put his hands on me. I want him to put his hands on me because I'm going to put my hands back on him. And he's going to feel me. He's going to understand I'm not the man you get physical with. And I'm like, man, all right, cool, fine, whatever. Jamar Chase went to work on Oklahoma. It's cool because Jamar Chase is going to work on literally everybody, but Jamar Chase went to work on my squad, man. I'm looking at Mickey Joseph and hey, take it easy. You bring some of that to Nebraska? You have these Husker wide receivers running around like Ohio State wide receivers? Like Oklahoma wide receivers a few years ago? Yeah, you might be in the mood to put up 50 on somebody. So I wanted to go well for Nebraska is the real take here because I think Nebraska can be good. I think they have to be good, and I think we're going to get an opportunity to see that when they play Northwestern in Dublin, Ireland. I'm really fascinated with that game, and I hope for both of those programs it acts as a jumping off point for what they are capable of in 2022. Okay, my fourth question that we got to get to. Will the Big Ten West, in parentheses, ever produce a college football playoff selection? Think about it from this standpoint. The Big Ten West is not unlike Phil Mickelson once was, the best player to never win a major championship. The best division to not produce a college football playoff selection. Like, think about it. You got Wisconsin, who's always going to be good, if not very good. Like, bad for Wisconsin is 9 wins, right? Minnesota has reached them and said, no, we can play with Wisconsin. Look at what we did last year. Without our best tailback, our best player, right, and Mohamed Ibrahim for most of the year, you're working down your offensive line. You're figuring out your passing situation, which was abysmal. You still managed to win 9 games. And then Iowa ends up being the class of that conference and rising to a top 5 program in the middle of the doggone season. And yet they still can't get a team into the college football playoff. Now, I put a bunch of this on divisions. I think divisions are stupid at this point. The game is get as many teams into the playoff as you possibly can. It works for the SEC because the SEC has shown over and over again that it's produced the best football. One of the ways you can do that if you're the Big Ten is just by getting rid of all your conferences and making everybody play everybody and giving us the matchups that we want to see, but also giving a road for Ohio State and Michigan to play for for a Big Ten championship, right? And maybe there are 2 teams that get into the college football playoff, and you got 2 in there. I really think that it's going to be difficult for Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Purdue. Purdue's good. My goodness. Northwestern on the odd year. You get what I'm saying here? Like, I don't think this is the year because Ohio State is that good. And I don't know of anybody that's not picking Ohio State that is looking at this sport from an objective standpoint. But I would like to see it. Like, in my most Monique voice, I would like to see it. Now, if it ends up being Purdue because they want to sling the ball all around, that'd be great. If it's Minnesota in that inside zone they want to run, or that I think is pretty doggone good, play great defense. Hell, the only team that I don't think is capable of winning the Big Ten West as it stands right now might be Illinois. And I'm probably sleeping on them if you ask folks around the Illini program, based entirely on Chase Brown being in the backfield. What I'm saying is it's interesting to think about because the Pac-12 North has produced a college football playoff entrant before the Big Ten West, and they did it in 2016 with Washington, right? And then we go back, Oregon, right? Like, it's just the idea that Oregon and Washington make it to a college football playoff before Wisconsin is not a fact that you would have got past me 12 years ago. I'd have been like, say, what, huh? Nah, man. I don't see it. How does that even happen? And I think a lot of this has to do with just what the schedule is and just how difficult it is over there in the Big Ten East. But will the Pac-12, will the Big Ten West produce one? Probably not, but again, I would like to see it. All right, number 5 on the list to finish out my top 5 storylines for the Big Ten Conference. Is this the year the Big Ten gets 2 teams in the college football playoff? Spoilers, no, it's not. It's not because Ohio State, Michigan State are all very good. And I'm going to take 2 of those teams at a minimum to beat the best 2 teams in the Big Ten West. So if I'm handicapping it right now, Ohio State, Michigan, Yeah, Michigan folks, fight me. Okay, fine. And then we're talking about Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa. If you put those three against each other, I think the Big Ten East is going to win more of those games. But I also think that you're going to have to go get some wins against some Big Ten East teams that we just don't expect you to get. Somebody from the Big Ten West is going to not only have to run the Big Ten West, they're going to have to run roughshod over their Big Ten East opponents, right? Probably means you got to get a win against one of those three teams that I mentioned, Ohio State, Michigan, or Michigan State. I just don't see it happening this year. However, it could. I just don't see it. Like, the SEC is got a stranglehold on the college football playoff, which is another reason why I want to see the doggone thing expand. And we have all these other discussions going on about where and when you're going to watch football games. But the big one is you make more room, you create more inventory, you got more opportunities to get in. Like, I'm not averse to a 16 teams. You got three group of 5 teams in. I'm here for it because y'all are going to hate it. And that's just going to give us a lot to talk about. But I love digging through chaos. It's my favorite thing. I really do. I thrive at times of chaos. When it feels uncertain, nah, man, that means I'm going to put the pedal down and we're going to throw this mug into the corner and I'm going to make it stick. Have me running through a crash, because I'm usually not going to be in a fast enough car to just go outrun Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen. I just need a little luck here every now and again. That's all I'm saying. That's my group of 5 teams. Just give me a little bit of luck, Give me Fernando Alonso having an opportunity to hold somebody off on the back end, right? Because he will make that car as wide as the doggone road. He'll make it as wide as 2 roads. And it's be some Gandalf stuff. You shall not pass. And it's not just because he's as old as Gandalf himself. Yeah, I said it. Thanks for watching this video. And remember, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other videos on the #1 ranked show YouTube channel.